what is Starship? To SpaceX is not just a rocket, it is the largest fully reusable vehicle ever built, designed to carry humanity to Mars. But before it can push beyond Earth, it has to prove itself. Early experiments like Starhopper and the SN series proved that a giant steel spacecraft can drop from the sky and land vertically. But beyond Earth, the real test begins.
Four, three, ignition.
This is Starship, two vehicles in one, the Super Heavy booster on the bottom and the Starship spacecraft on top. But the flight doesn't go as planned. Multiple Raptor engines fail mid-ascent. The vehicle reaches a peak of 24 miles, begins to tumble, and the automated flight termination system kicks in. SpaceX rebuilds. The pad, torn apart on the first flight, is upgraded and the water-cooled steel plate now sits beneath the engines. This time, all 33 Raptor engines on the Super Heavy booster work over the entire duration. For the first time in history, a rocket of such dimensions successfully executes a hot stage separation, separating the module rockets with the engines running while still being attached. The Super Heavy booster does its flip maneuver successfully, but a few minutes into the flight, it begins to break apart. Meanwhile, Starship's second stage Raptor engines make the ship reach space for the very first time, peaking at a height of nearly 93 miles. It is incredibly close to completing its full burn before telemetry is lost and the self-destruct command is given for safety. Matching the success of the previous flight, the booster does its job, clearing the path for Starship to push further than ever before. This time the Super Heavy booster lights its engines for landing for the very first time, stabilizing itself at around 1,500 feet. Then it begins to break apart. Starship continues its flight and completes its full ascent burn for the very first time. In orbit, it begins early tests, opening its payload door and demonstrating full transfer between tanks. Then comes its first attempt at re-entry. For nearly 49 minutes, the mission continues, until contact is lost. Building on the lessons of previous flights, the launch is again successful, with another hot stage separation being performed. The Super Heavy booster matches the previous success and exceeds it, reaching a perfect soft splashdown on its return. Starship also marks progress, performing a controlled re-entry, testing its flaps while passing through the atmosphere at hypersonic speeds. Starship fires its three center Raptor engines, executing a flip maneuver along with a landing burn. The mission ends with a successful splashdown in the Indian Ocean, after just over an hour in flight.
Ignition.
For the first time, SpaceX attempts to catch the returning booster using the mechanical arms of the Mechazilla tower. And on the very first attempt, the arms lock onto the booster. Up in space, Starship begins its return through the atmosphere. Re-entry puts the vehicle under extreme heat and pressure before executing a flip, doing a landing burn, and splashing down in the ocean. A new mission aims to push the limits even further. However, during the booster descent, automated systems trigger an abort of the catch, and the vehicle is diverted to a safe splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico. Starship continues its flight in orbit. It reignites a Raptor engine in space, a key test to confirm it can perform engine restarts needed for coming back from orbit. This flight is even observed and captured by external cameras aboard the International Space Station, before the ship completes its journey with a splashdown in the Indian Ocean. A new era begins with the first flight of version 2, featuring massive upgrades to the engines, optimized flaps, internal tanks, and a heavier payload capacity of 35 tons to low Earth orbit. It officially becomes the heaviest flying object ever built by humankind, weighing a staggering 12.1 million pounds. Following a successful launch and a hot stage separation, the booster begins its return to the tower. And once again a successful catch at the tower. Starship lights all 6 Raptor engines and performs its ascent burn to space. But prior to the burn completion, the telemetry with the vehicle is lost. Space is never easy. The next mission starts strong, securing a 3rd consecutive booster catch at Starbase. But prior to the end of the ascent burn, Starship starts losing several engines. From initial data, this is caused by an internal fire that breaks out in the engine bay, leading to the destruction of the vehicle. A new flight, a new milestone. The booster from Flight 7 is reused for the very first time. On its return, it is tested at higher angles, resulting in a slower descent and lower propellant usage, leading to a planned splashdown instead of the catch. However, it later disintegrated over the designated splashdown area in the Gulf of Mexico, just after the ignition of the landing burn. Starship reaches its planned velocity, preparing for its first payload deployment, but several issues began to appear. The payload door fails to open, and altitude control is lost before re-entry. Contact is lost about 46 minutes into the flight. This flight pushes more testing for the booster, executing a landing burn with an engine intentionally disabled and using a backup engine from the middle ring. A final hover above water is possible before shutting down the engines and splashing into the sea. Starship delivers a flawless performance. It completes a full duration ascent burn, reaching space and successfully deploying its payload for the very first time. 8 Starlink satellite simulators. On re-entry, it's intentionally stressed, yet it successfully executes a landing flip, completing the test with a landing burn and a soft splashdown. The final flight of version 2 marks a shift from experiments to more consistent routine testing. It includes heat shield tight experiments and further Raptor engine tests. It also introduces a complex maneuver, having the ability to navigate to a precise location with the ship flying back towards Starbase, to mimic the trajectory of future missions. The mission is then diverted for a soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean. The future arrives with version 3, a new generation designed to carry up to 100 tons to low Earth orbit.
4, 3, ignition.
The new booster return is brutal, ending in a hard splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico. Despite losing an engine during the ascent, Starship continues on its planned trajectory. It deploys 20 Starlink simulators and 2 imaging satellites that capture it in space. On re-entry, it pushes the limits of its new design, guiding itself to a planned splashdown in the Indian Ocean using only 2 engines. This is Starship, 12 flights, one system evolving in real time.